Some stories don't begin with a hero. They begin with a gunshot, deep in the woods where no one was supposed to hear it. But someone did. A retired Marine, living alone far from the world that broke him, and a loyal German shepherd who still believes every life is worth saving. When they reached the trees, they didn't find a hunter. They found a woman, bleeding, terrified, betrayed by the man she trusted for 10 years. A billionaire now being hunted by her own business partner, who sent killers to finish what he started. And those killers are still out there, closing in, hunting her, hunting them. But what they never expected is that this Marine stopped running from danger a long time ago. If you're ready for a story about loyalty, courage, betrayal, and the kind of miracle only God can arrange, don't scroll, stay, watch, and feel this story. And if it touches your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe. It truly helps this channel grow. I read every comment, and I'm grateful you're here. May God bless you for watching. The early morning air in Pine Hollow, a small and quiet town tucked against the foothills of northern Montana, carried the kind of cold that crept through flannel and bone alike. The sky hung low with silver clouds, promising late-season snow even though it was already April, and the pine trees surrounding the area stood dark and still, their needles rattling only when the wind felt cruel enough to shake them. Jack Turner sat on the front steps of his old cedarwood cabin, a mug of black coffee cupped in his hands, steam rising in thin ribbons. Jack was 45, tall and broad-shouldered, with the kind of physique that came from years of military discipline and a life that refused to soften afterward. His square jaw was shadowed with several days of salt and pepper stubble, his short, dark hair streaked with gray near the temples, and a faint scar ran from the corner of his right eye down to his cheek, an old reminder from a mission in Fallujah he never bothered to explain to anyone. His expression was always calm, almost unreadable, but there was a quiet heaviness behind his eyes, the weight carried by men who had seen too much and returned to a world that no longer understood them. Beside him lay Rex, his 5-year-old German shepherd, trained as a military working dog during Jack's last years in the Marine Corps. Rex was large for his breed, thick-furred with a strong black saddle marking across his back and amber-brown eyes that seemed too intelligent for a creature who could not speak. His ears were always perked, nose twitching at every shift of wind, as if the world were one constant puzzle only he could decode. Unlike most dogs, Rex rarely wagged his tail. He showed affection through stillness, leaning his weight against Jack's leg or placing his head quietly on a boot. He was disciplined, loyal, and surprisingly gentle, except when danger was near. Jack often joked that Rex was the only living soul who understood him without needing words. The stillness of the morning shattered in an instant. 3 sharp cracks, the unmistakable sound of gunshots echoing from deep within the northern tree line. Rex's ears shot up first, then his body followed, standing rigid and alert. Jack set his coffee down, instinct taking over faster than thought. A normal hunter wouldn't fire 3 rounds like that, not spaced the way these were. They sounded panicked, desperate, wrong. Jack rose to his feet and moved toward the cabin door. He didn't curse, didn't hesitate. He simply acted, the same way he had acted during every firefight overseas. Rex followed at his heel without command. Inside the cabin, Jack grabbed the Mossberg 590 shotgun hanging above the fireplace, checked the chamber with one motion, and slung a small canvas medpack over his shoulder. Whatever was out there, someone might already be bleeding. The snow-packed ground crunched under Jack's boots as he and Rex moved into the woods. Rex led, nose low, gait steady tail stiff, not a household pet, but a trained scout. The forest was quiet in the wrong way, as if even the birds knew something violent had happened. After about 500 meters of weaving between firs and over fallen logs, Rex stopped, growling low enough that only Jack could hear it. Jack lifted the gun, scanning left and right, before following Rex's gaze downward. There, half hidden in a thorny cluster of brush, lay a woman. She looked to be in her early 30s, wearing a once white blouse now soaked dark red near the abdomen, a tailored navy jacket torn at the shoulder, and expensive-looking boots utterly out of place in the mud and needles of the Montana forest. She had long chestnut-brown hair, now tangled and matted with leaves, and skin pale enough to warn of blood loss. Her face, oval, delicate, with sharp eyebrows and soft lips, suggested someone used to boardrooms and glass offices, not gunfire in the wilderness. Her breathing was shallow, rapid, each inhale rattling like she was fighting to stay present. Jack knelt and checked the wound. Entry from the side. The bullet likely passed through, missing anything immediately fatal, but causing severe bleeding. She wasn't a hunter. She wasn't dressed for hiking. She was running from something. "Rex, perimeter," Jack muttered, and the dog moved in a silent sweep around them. The woman's eyes fluttered open just long enough to see Jack's face above hers. Fear surfaced first, then a flicker of relief. Like even half-conscious, she could tell he wasn't the one who shot her. She tried to speak, but only a dry gasp came out. Jack didn't ask questions. He lifted her carefully, slinging her across his back with the practiced strength of a man who had carried dying soldiers through desert alleyways. She weighed little, maybe 110 pounds, but the weakness in her limbs told him she wasn't going to survive long without help. The trip back to the cabin felt longer, the forest seeming to close in behind them. Every rustle of branches sounded like a chase. Jack didn't look back, but Rex did, constantly, head snapping from side to side, reading threats Jack couldn't see. Once inside the cabin, Jack laid the woman on the wooden table he normally used for gear repairs. Rex lay beside the table, eyes fixed on the door like a sentry. Jack tore open the med pack, cutting fabric, disinfecting, packing gauze, moving with a precision that came from too many battlefield dressings. The woman winced, but didn't wake fully. Her pulse was weak, but steady enough to keep the door between her and death closed. For now. The room smelled of pine, iodine, and blood. Outside, the wind pushed through the trees again, but neither Jack nor Rex moved. They stayed like statues, man working, dog guarding, until the woman breathed a little deeper, her body sinking, exhaustion overtaking panic. When she finally stilled into something close to sleep, Rex rose, padded closer to the table, and rested his head near her arm. His posture changed, no longer alert, but protective, almost comforting, as if telling her she wasn't alone anymore. Jack watched for a moment, then exhaled. The gunshots still echoed in his mind, unanswered, unresolved, but he knew one thing with certainty. Whatever had chased her into the woods wasn't finished yet, and whatever was coming, it would have to get through him first. Emily woke slowly, as if rising through deep water, her breathing uneven, her eyes flickering before finally staying open. The wooden ceiling above her meant nothing at first, but the scent of pine and antiseptic pulled her memory back fast. Gunshots, running, the sting of a bullet, the forest swallowing her whole. Panic flared in her chest, and she tried to sit up, but a firm hand rested on her shoulder before she could move further. Jack Turner stood beside the table, calm but alert, as if he had been there the entire time waiting. "You're safe for now," he said, his voice low, steady, a tone used to settling chaos rather than adding to it. Emily's gaze darted around the room until it found Rex. The German shepherd lay beside her, chin resting gently near her wrist, eyes soft, ears lifted but not tense. When she breathed faster, Rex nudged her arm lightly with his nose, a gesture that felt oddly grounding, reassuring in a way words couldn't be. That small contact slowed her breathing enough for her mind to return to the present. "You're hurt, but the bullet didn't hit anything vital," Jack said, pulling off a pair of medical gloves stained with her dried blood. "I removed the fragment. You'll live if you rest." Emily opened her mouth, but her voice caught in her throat before forming sound. She swallowed hard. How did I get here?" "I carried you out of the woods," Jack replied simply. He didn't offer sympathy or soft tones, just facts. Facts she could rely on. Emily Carter was used to control. 33 years old, CEO of a multi-billion-dollar tech corporation she had co-founded when she was barely 24, she had built an empire with immaculate posture, perfect negotiation poise, and a reputation for never letting emotion override strategy. But right now, her long chestnut hair was tangled, her face was drained of color, and the confidence she normally carried like armor had been stripped away. She looked less like a billionaire and more like someone whose world had collapsed in a single day. She tried again, voice cracking. "They tried to kill me." Jack didn't flinch. "Who are they?" Emily hesitated, biting down on the answer the way someone bites down on pain before allowing it to bleed out. "Marcus Hale, my business partner." Her hands trembled. He was supposed to be my closest ally. We built the company together. I trusted him for almost 10 years, more than 10. But he's been moving things behind my back. Fake board votes, hidden accounts. And when I threatened to expose him, he sent hired men after me. Jack studied her quietly, absorbing not just the words, but the exhausted truth behind them. He had seen betrayal before. Different setting, same cruelty. Marcus Hale wasn't just a name. It was now a threat with reach, money, and no hesitation to spill blood. "Marcus Hale," Jack repeated, wanting the name fixed, in memory. "What kind of man is he?" Emily let out a bitter, breathless laugh. "Handsome, charming, 48, salt and pepper hair like some politician in a campaign ad, Harvard smile, perfect handshake, but behind closed doors, calculating, entitled, obsessed with control. He thinks the company is his legacy, not ours. And he can't stand the idea that the public face of the empire is a woman." Jack had seen men like that in the military. Officers who believed rank made them gods. Marcus wasn't new to him. The uniform was just different. Emily tried to sit up and winced. Jack steadied her without asking permission. "You need to stay still," he said. "I can't," she whispered. "He won't stop. If he sent people after me once, he'll do it again. I can't stay here and put you in danger." Jack didn't answer right away. His eyes shifted to the boarded window, as if measuring the world beyond it. Rex rose suddenly, ears pointing toward the door, nose lifted. The dog didn't growl, yet, but the muscles in his back tensed. Jack felt it too. That quiet shift in the air. The forest outside had gone still again, but not with the silence of nature, the silence of watchers. "You're not putting me in danger," Jack said, voice steady as he picked up the shotgun he had rested against the counter. "You landed in the middle of something that started before I ever found you." Rex took 2 steps toward the door, fur lifting along his spine, body rigid. the kind of stance that meant something is out there. Emily looked frightened again, but this time she didn't panic. She reached slowly for Rex, fingers brushing his fur like she needed to borrow some of his certainty. Jack didn't raise his voice, didn't shout orders. He simply spoke like a man who had no doubt of what came next. Stay here. Don't move. Whatever's out there, it's not an animal. Rex barked. Sharp, loud, a warning that shattered the quiet. Someone was near the house. Rex's barking didn't stop. It grew sharper, more urgent, the kind of warning bark he only used when a threat was close and armed. Jack moved fast, stepping toward the wall beside the front window where a small, weathered monitor was mounted. The feed showed 4 different angles from hidden trail cameras buried along the property. One angle, north perimeter, caught motion. 2 men, dressed in dark tactical jackets and moving low between trees, each carrying suppressed rifles. Their steps were practiced, not panicked. Hired guns, not desperate civilians. Jack zoomed in. The first man was tall, mid-40s, with a lean and athletic build, the kind that came from a life of fieldwork, not gym selfies. His hair was buzzed short, his jaw narrow and angular, and a long, faded burn scar cut across the left side of his neck, disappearing under his collar. His walk was purposeful, eyes always scanning. Someone who had done this before. The second man was shorter, bulkier, late 30s, with a thick brown beard and a nervous tic. His left shoulder twitched every few steps, as if bracing for a shot that never came. His face was hardened, but his movements lacked the confidence of the first. Mercenaries, but not equals. They weren't here to search. They were tracking. Jack turned toward Emily, who was now sitting up fully, pale but conscious enough to read the dread on his face. "They found us, didn't they?" she whispered. Jack gave a single nod. "We don't have time. You can't stay here." Emily opened her mouth, then closed it, as if swallowing both fear and frustration. "Where do I go? I can barely stand." "You won't be walking far," Jack said, crossing to the center of the floor. He knelt and pulled up an old rug, revealing a rectangular metal plate set into the wood. He tapped the panel twice, then slid it aside, exposing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Emily stared, surprised. "You have a bunker?" Jack shook his head. "Not a bunker. Escape tunnel. I built it years ago when I was still getting used to silence. Some habits from war don't leave you." His tone wasn't dramatic, just factual, as if trauma was simply another tool he never stopped carrying. He helped Emily down the first few steps. Her breath trembled, not just from pain, but from the realization that she was leaving behind the last safe room she had known since being shot. The tunnel smelled of earth and metal. The walls were reinforced, the ceiling low enough Jack had to duck. Rex stood at the opening, waiting for instruction. Jack rested a hand on the dog's head. "Not this time, buddy. You're staying with me." Emily froze halfway down. "No," she said, voice suddenly sharp. "Jack, you're coming with us. You can't stay here alone." Jack met her eyes, steady but not cold. "If I leave, they'll track us both. If I stay, I can stall them long enough for you to reach a road. The sheriff's station is 12 miles east. You'll need help, and they won't believe you without proof. I'll buy you time to get it." Emily shook her head in disbelief. "You don't even know me. Why would you risk your life for me?" Jack didn't miss a beat. "Because someone already tried to kill you. That's enough." Rex walked to Emily and pressed his head into her hand, licking her fingers once before stepping back, tail lowered but eyes steady. A a silent goodbye from a soldier who understood orders. Emily's voice broke. "Rex, Jack, I'm not leaving you here." "Yes, you are," Jack said, his tone final, the tone of a Marine used to being obeyed when lives depended on it. "And you're going to make sure this wasn't for nothing." He pressed a small flashlight into her palm and pointed down the tunnel. "Follow it until you reach the exit. Comes out by the old fire break near the creek. Stay low. Keep moving." Emily hesitated one last second, then forced herself down into the darkness, fear mixing with something she hadn't felt since childhood, trust she didn't choose, but had been given. Jack slid the metal hatch back into place and pulled the rug over it again, erasing the escape route from sight. The house was quiet except for Rex's low growl and the soft hum of the security monitor. The two figures outside were closer now, 200 meters and closing. Jack crossed the room and opened a long, black case. Inside was an M1A rifle, well-maintained, matte black, a weapon built for precision and stopping power. He checked the magazine, chambered a round, and moved to the window where the forest framed the coming threat. Rex stood beside him, muscles tight, ears pinned forward, waiting for the signal. Jack locked the door, every bolt sliding into place. "All right, partner," he murmured, eyes fixed on the tree line. "Let's give her the time she needs." Rex didn't bark this time. He just stood ready. The first two gunmen reached the clearing in front of the cabin, just as the sun dipped behind the tree line, turning the woods into a maze of shadows and uneven light. They paused, scanning the silent house, their rifles raised in a slow, synchronized sweep. Jack watched them from the second-floor window through the scope of his M1A, not firing yet. He didn't need to win the fight in one shot. He needed to control it. Rex waited below, crouched near the back door, muscles coiled like a drawn bowstring. Jack gave a soft hand signal. One open palm faced downward. "Stay." Rex obeyed, but his eyes stayed locked on the tree line, reading movement long before any human would. A third man appeared, new, unexpected, coming from the west side of the woods. He was different from the first two. Taller, heavier, mid-50s, bald, with a thick gray beard and a rifle strapped tight across his chest. His face was weathered like someone who had spent half his life outdoors, but his eyes were unsettlingly calm. No nervous tics, no wasted motion. A veteran of violence, not a hired amateur. He didn't rush. He watched the cabin the way a hunter watched a trapped animal. Certain time was on his side. Jack recognized the posture immediately. Someone who had done reconnaissance before arriving. Someone who wasn't guessing. "More than two," Jack muttered under his breath. "They sent a team, maybe a handler." He moved quickly away from the window and slipped out the back door, silent as a ghost. The forest swallowed him and Rex as they disappeared into the dark. The traps were already set. Jack had rigged them the moment he returned from the tunnel. Pressure-triggered trip mines buried in leaves, cable snares hidden beneath logs, and natural choke points marked in his mind from years of running these woods. The cabin wasn't his defense. The forest was. The first kill came fast. The nervous bearded gunman stepped between two pines, brushing past a fallen branch, and the earth erupted beneath him in a flash of light and dirt. The blast slammed him backward, shredding his leg below the knee, leaving him screaming and clawing at the ground. The scar-necked leader ducked behind a stump, shouting orders into an earpiece. They weren't surprised. They were angry. Rex moved next. He burst from the brush like a missile of muscle and teeth, slamming into the wounded man before he could raise his rifle. His growl wasn't savage. It was controlled. the trained strike of a military dog who knew exactly where to bite. The man howled, grappling, but Rex clamped harder, pinning him into the dirt. A moment later, his screams stopped. Jack fired then, one precise shot from the trees. The scar-necked leader dropped instantly, a hole between his eyes before he ever saw the direction it came from. The shot echoed through the woods, bouncing off trunks like a warning. "You're hunting the wrong man." But the bald handler didn't run. He crouched behind cover and spoke calmly into a radio clipped to his vest. "Target male is armed, trained, and using the terrain. Dog confirmed K9 military, proceeding with second wave." Second wave. Jack felt the air change. More boots, more guns. The enemy wasn't retreating. They were tightening the noose. He and Rex moved deeper into the woods, keeping low, shifting along the creek bed where sound died in running water. But the newcomers were quick. 4 more men, all dressed the same, fanning out in a semicircle. They weren't hunting wild. They were herding. Jack and Rex reached the ridge just as a bullet hit the tree beside them, splintering bark. Rex growled, ears flat. Jack fired twice, dropping one of the advancing men, but the others returned fire fast. Short, disciplined bursts from suppressed rifles. Jack ducked behind a stump, heart steady, breathing controlled. But his ammo was limited. His traps were fewer than his enemies, and they were closing the distance. Rex crawled beside him, chest rising fast, not from fear, but readiness. Jack pressed a hand to the dog's fur, grounding both of them in the moment. "We're not done," he whispered. Then he heard it. At first, just a faint rumble, almost part of the sky. Then the distant chop of rotor blades cutting through clouds. Slow, heavy, approaching from the south. A helicopter. Jack couldn't tell yet if it was rescue or reinforcements for the enemy, but the mercenaries looked nervous. The bald leader barked new orders, faster now. "Move in. Finish it before eyes get here." They were desperate to kill him before the helicopter arrived. Jack's position was compromised. He and Rex were nearly surrounded. He gripped his rifle and looked at Rex, and Rex looked back. Not scared, just waiting for the signal. "Last stand, partner," Jack said quietly. Rex leaned forward, ready to launch. The helicopter descended through the tree line with a roar that shook branches loose, its searchlight cutting through the dusk like a blade. Jack and Rex stayed low behind the ridge until the markings on the side of the aircraft became clear. Sheriff's Department. Not mercenaries. Not reinforcements for the killers. Real law enforcement. The gunfire in the woods shifted direction as the remaining mercenaries realized they were no longer hunting. They were cornered. Flashbangs cracked through the clearing. Armored officers in dark uniforms swept in, and within minutes the forest turned from battlefield to crime scene. Jack stayed back, watching, breathing hard but steady, one hand resting on Rex's scruff. The dog remained alert, but his ears slowly softened. The danger was passing. By the time Jack stepped out from the trees with Rex beside him, the armed men lay zip-tied on the ground or motionless under tarps. The bald handler, still alive but bleeding from a gunshot to the shoulder, glared at Jack with a look that wasn't anger, just cold recognition. Jack didn't flinch under it. He had seen eyes like that before, men who weren't afraid of dying because they had already killed enough to not care. A deputy approached. Deputy Collins, a sturdy man in his early 40s, sandy blonde hair shaved close, tired blue eyes, and the kind of weathered face that came from 15 years of responding to every kind of disaster a rural county could offer. He spoke carefully, not hostile, but wary. "You Jack Turner?" Jack nodded. We've had your name on file since you moved out here, Collins said. Former Marine, honorable discharge, service K-9 handler. Sheriff says you're the reason we didn't walk into an ambush blind tonight. Jack didn't respond with pride, just quiet acceptance. I did what needed doing. Before Collins could speak again, a vehicle engine rumbled into the area. A county patrol SUV slid into the clearing, and Emily climbed out with help from a paramedic. Her skin was still pale, her left arm bandaged, but her eyes were steady now, no longer panicked, but sharp with purpose. She walked straight to Jack, ignoring the mud, the noise, the officers calling her name. I made it. I told them everything. I had proof, emails, forged contracts, money transfers Marcus tried to bury. She turned, and for the first time since Jack met her, he saw authority return to her voice. They're issuing a federal warrant. Marcus Hale is being arrested right now. Almost on cue, a radio crackled from a deputy's vest. Suspect Marcus Hale in custody. Repeat, Hale is secured. Emily closed her eyes, a single breath leaving her as if the weight of months finally slid off her spine. But the relief did not last long. A second transmission followed, quieter, more unsettling. Suspect is refusing to cooperate. Says, and I quote, "You think this ends with me?" She doesn't know half of it. Emily opened her eyes again, but this time her expression wasn't fear. It was understanding. A war hadn't been won, only the first battle. Jack watched her and didn't need explanation. There was always more beneath the surface. He had learned that in deserts, jungles, and cities where power moved in shadows and money made rules bend. Later that night, when the bodies were taken away and the forest was quiet again, Emily sat with Jack outside the cabin. The sky was clear now, stars stretching over the treetops like a silent audience. Rex sat between them, tail resting against Emily's boot. "You saved my life," she said softly. "I can't pay you back for that," Jack shook his head. "You don't owe me anything." "I know," Emily replied, "but I want to do something that matters. Not lawsuits, not more corporate battles." She turned toward him fully. "You're a man people could follow, Jack. What if we built something instead of just surviving? A training program, service dogs for veterans. You and Rex leading it. I'll fund everything, no strings." Jack almost smiled. Almost. "I'm not interested in being anyone's poster boy," he said. "I came out here to be left alone." But Rex didn't move away. He nudged Emily's hand again, the same way he had done when she was dying on the table. Wordless reassurance. Emily laughed through tired breath. Jack stared at Rex, then exhaled through his nose, a resigned smirk forming. "You're betraying me," Jack muttered to the dog. Rex just wagged his tail once. Emily stood, wincing slightly, and looked toward the dark trees where the gunman had once hidden. "There's still more coming, Jack. Marcus didn't act alone." Jack rose too, slinged the rifle over his shoulder, and looked at the forest the same way soldiers look at old battlefields. Half memory, half warning. "Good," he said quietly. "Then we'll be ready." Rex stood between them, watching the shadows, ears forward. 3 figures, 1 man, 1 dog, 1 woman marked by betrayal, stood facing the woods. Not enemies, not fugitives. Something new. Something beginning. Sometimes, the greatest miracles don't come as flashes of light or voices from the sky. Sometimes, they arrive quietly, in the form of a stranger who chooses to help, a loyal dog who never leaves our side, or a moment when we are forced to face darkness so we can finally see the light. Maybe God doesn't always stop the storm, but He always sends someone to walk through it with us. Jack didn't ask for a mission. Emily didn't expect a second chance. Rex didn't speak a single word. But God used all three of them in a way none of them could have planned. Because every act of courage, every choice to protect someone else, is a piece of God's work happening through human hands. And if you're watching this right now, maybe that reminder is meant for you too. You are never too broken to be used for something good. You are never too lost to be found. And you are never walking alone, even when the world feels silent. May God continue to place the right people, the right moments, and the right miracles on your path, even before you know you need them. Amen. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment, share this video with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story of healing, faith, and second chances. May God bless you, protect your family, and remind you every single day that miracles still happen.